One day on a road with many cars, suddenly a car stopped moving. The driver had a sudden illness and lost his eyesight. But what was not expected was, it was a highly contagious disease. The disease spreads rapidly. The Korean government immediately starts emergency measures. The first people to be infected were sent to a quarantine area for isolation. Among them were the driver and some of the people who had first come into contact with him. Among them, Jack, an ophthalmologist, and his wife Anna were among them. But Anna wasn't infected. She just didn't want to leave her husband alone. She insisted on staying behind to look after him. Anna was willing to be their eyes, showing them the way to the toilet. On the way, a man takes the opportunity to grope the woman. He was kicked in the leg by a woman with a high heel. Mr. and Mrs. Jack are decent people. They helped the man with a simple treatment. Life could have gone on, as the infected were brought in. The quarantine area. The quarantine zone is becoming a battleground for the weak and the strong. At the same time, Jack also found out that the food allotted was not even a staple, and there was very little of it. Not to mention medicine. When he got sick, he had to carry himself through. Angry, Anna called to complain. She found that the phones were not working. As more and more infected people are brought in, the beds were getting tighter and tighter. Before long, the isolation area was already overcrowded. They were urinating and defecating in the corridors. Although Anna helped with the cleaning, but she was exhausted after a while, and their only source of information was this little radio. On the radio, they had some idea of what was going on out there. At this point in time, scientists around the world are at a loss as to what to do about the disease. The epidemic is still spreading fast. Whether it's the common man or the high and mighty, there was an influx of infected people. The city was plunged into darkness. Everyone was devastated to hear this. The one-eyed master turned down the volume a little. He played a song for the crowd. The crowd gathered around the radio at this point. It was like a miniature of a blind man's country. But in this closed country of the blind, there is no manager to set the rules. It's become dirty and smelly. Have you ever seen hell on earth? Although Anna tried to look after everyone, but there were too many people. The blind people were covered in dirt. The smell was disgusting. She was almost devastated. Her husband urged her to take a break. She didn't dare. She was afraid that when she opened her eyes again, there was only darkness in her eyes. In such harsh conditions, there are always people who try to escape, and they all end up being shot straight away. And the situation was still going from bad to worse. Ward 3, led by Bob, is brutal and unreasonable. They made themselves king. They had taken all the food. The rest of the wards wanted food. They had to exchange it for valuables. The Jacks were the first to protest, but to no avail. Now this is a place where there is no rule of law. The pistol in Bob's hand is the law, and the guards outside the walls don't give a damn about the people inside. They only provide a limited amount of food. It's up to them to distribute it, in order not to starve to death. Anna volunteered to collect the belongings. She hid a pair of scissors while collecting the goods, and another woman, under Anna's care, hid her own lighter. Jack took these possessions to Bob's in exchange for food, but Bob had a grudge against Jack. He deliberately undershared the food. Jack was furious. He also resented his own incompetence. The food soon ran out. The last exchange had depleted everyone's possessions. Bob had come up with an inhuman idea. He wanted them to trade women for food. The women protested. They knew what was waiting for them there. Jack didn't approve either. He would rather starve to death than live like this. The ward was silent. But just then,
I'll go. I'll go with her. Me too.
Then more and more women volunteered. They knew that in the face of life and dignity, only by surviving can they have a chance to fight for dignity. A group of men sent themselves to quarantine area 3. They went through a night of hell. One of the women was tragically killed, and that was just the beginning. These beasts are here to despise them. Anna couldn't take it anymore. She was the only one here who could see. She felt she had to do something. She grabbed the scissors. She slipped into Ward 3. She killed Bob outright with the scissors.
Collect from now on.
Even with this, the people in Ward 1 were still afraid to follow Anna's lead. There was even a suggestion that Anna be handed over in exchange for food. And that's when the woman who had hidden the lighter slipped into Ward 3 alone. She fumbled and lit the sheets there. The flames flared up quickly. Soon, everyone in Ward 3 died in the fire. As the fire continued to spread, fear gripped the entire quarantine area. Anna rushed out with the group to call for help. They shouted for help, but no one answered. They realized that the quarantine area was deserted. There was no one to guard it. Now was the time to get out. So Rainer led the way. They walked with each other through the familiar neighborhoods of the past. But the city was no longer the hustle and bustle it used to be. There is no longer any human civilization left. All that remains is rubbish and rubbish. The world outside has gone completely out of control. A sense of blindness has blinded the entire human race. After settling in briefly, Anna went out in search of food. The supermarket shelves must be empty. Fortunately, no one had found the warehouse. She found plenty of food here. She couldn't wait to eat. After she'd finished, she packed 2 bags to take home, although she was nearly robbed when someone spotted her on the way. But luckily Jack was there to help. Suddenly it's pouring outside. People were standing in the pouring rain, as if they were rinsing off their filth to welcome a new tomorrow. When the rain stopped, the group continued on their way. They found Anna's home. It was untouched. Afterwards, the group tidied up. A group of people who didn't know each other well. After all that had happened, it was as if we had gone from hell to heaven, from night to dawn. But the bigger surprise was yet to come. One morning, the first infected person suddenly regained his eyesight. This meant that everyone would one day see again too. They would embrace each other and weep with joy. The civilization that had once been there would be there again. Anna was relieved. She had no choice in the face of this catastrophe, but unfortunately she could not share the sunlight with everyone else, for she is now blind.